Before we dive in, a couple of quick announcements. This is GoToWebinar. It's kind of new system for me, so if you haven't used it before, there are two things you need to know. One, the session's being recorded, so if you missed part of it or want to come back later, you can watch it. MTS will send out a link. And then if you have any questions for us at any time, you can type them into the questions panel. We probably won't get to them until the end. And we've also taken some questions over the registration we'll answer in the end as well. But please type them as they come or wait to the end. And then before we dive in, I want to thank MTS for the opportunity, and I'll speak more about that as we go. But they've been a great partner in getting these set up and bringing amazing speakers like the ones you'll hear from today to us. And we look forward to future partnerships and webinars with them. So without further ado, I'm going to advance the slides here. My name is Zach. I'm the developer relations lead and sales engineer at Sofar Ocean. I get just a really short intro, so I'm going to run through this stuff really quick so we can get to some of the other speakers today. But I did want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about Sofar Ocean and the hardware that we build, because I think it underpins a lot of the other things we'll be talking about today. If you haven't already checked us out, please do on our website. But essentially, we started the company with the idea that collecting ocean data at scale is hard, and so we kind of introduced the idea of a low-cost buoy to the world. And the first, well, I don't know if you can also see my talking head, but I also have one in the chair next to me. It's small, it's about the size of a basketball. And it's low cost, lightweight, easy to use, like all the things that typical oceanographic equipment aren't. And that allows you to do different types of science or ask different questions or use in tandem with some existing stuff, or in some cases, put technology where there hasn't been this type of technology before. Essentially, the spotter, it collects motion data, translates that motion data into wind and wave data. It also collects a little bit of additional data like sea surface temperature and atmospheric barometer. These can be free drifting like our grid, which we use to build the world's most accurate ocean weather forecast, or you can buy one and moor it in your favorite coral reef to tell what the conditions are right now, right today. Kind of a fun part, or my favorite part of the spotter, is all the subsurface sampling that it can do. So we've extended, rather than using just a poly line down to an anchor, you can use a smart mooring, which is a digital interface I'll talk about in a second. But we have added a couple of different capabilities to it. We've partnered with RBR to bring you temperature, pressure, the combo of the two, and anything really on the Coda 3 series. We've partnered with Bandara to bring you the single point current. We have some exciting new pieces coming out. This summer, we'll have a hydrophone from AOS and dissolved oxygen from PME, both things that we're really excited about. And then you can kind of roll your own. We've got a dev kit so that you can add your own sensor to it. The infrastructure on which all of this plays is Bristlemouth. This is my little pet project, and to call it mine is not fair. This is my favorite pet project, but it allows, it's an open source standard that allows users and customers, developers, other companies to play on our system and develop their own systems ground up. And so this is how you would attach a third-party sensor, or there's even some people in the audience right now that are building sensors on Bristlemouth. So thank you guys for coming. I don't want to take up too much time talking about this equipment, but it is kind of underpinning all of the research that's being done. But I want to get quickly to the different things that people are using this for. We have customers in aquaculture, offshore, it runs the gamut. I work with the Port of San Francisco here for coastal resilience. You name it, if it's in the ocean, it's likely that you're going to need wind, or near the ocean, it's likely that you're going to need wind and wave temperature data, all that fun stuff. Today, we bring you a lot of stories from, or well, 3 speakers from conservation and research, specifically around coral reefs. You know, every time we do one of these presentations, or I go to a presentation about coral, there's a lot of like doom and gloom. And I don't want to hit everybody over the head with it, because it's like you've heard this before, but I do want to kind of center us and just for a moment mention the importance of these ecosystems. They cover less than 1% of the ocean, but are responsible for a quarter of the biodiversity. And they're in real trouble. There's things like ocean acidification, rising temperatures, the impact of tourism, and overfishing. And as of more recently, and you'll hear a lot more about this in the upcoming talks, but mass bleaching, which the whole colony can suffer some pretty irreparable damage. I was looking for some pretty doom and gloom slides to share with everybody, and I came across this one, which, if you can see the video playing, is like a live counter for the percent of coral reefs left. And this was really shocking. Like, out of all the articles I read, or a lot of the prep I did for this, I was like, okay, that kind of makes the point. The numbers you see are somewhat, debatable, but what really stood out to me is the quote that children born today may be the last generation to see these coral reefs. And I grew up diving and snorkeling in Florida, and the reefs kind of brought me into this field. And I'm fortunate enough, as many of you are, to be working in the ocean field today. They're very charismatic, and it's really sad. But I also came across this other quote last week. This is from John Green. He's an author about the fight against tuberculosis. And while that's not the same as the fight against coral bleaching, there's some similarities in that we could be doing a lot more than we are. And it's a really big problem. And the thing that I took away from John Green was that it's easy to feel like, this is the end. We're kind of walking away from some of our commitments to fixing this problem. But if you look at like the history of time, this is really the middle of the story. Like, we're just like little bit actors that have our parts, and that helps me feel a little bit better. And the quote ends with, together we're going to invent a different end to the story. And I think for me, that's the best way I can introduce the speakers for today. They are folks that are in the trenches, working hard, and are doing just outstanding work, as so many people in the coral field are. And they're doing everything that they can, pouring all of themselves into making that better end. So I'd like to kind of pause there, or take this opportunity to introduce our first speaker, Vince Smith, the Director of Impact at Whalefall. And Vince, I can drive the slides if you want me to, but we'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. Well, the Spotter platform has been essential to our work at Whalefall. So Whalefall, we are a ocean conservation nonprofit, and we bring students to original and collaborative ocean impact projects around the world for scale. It started back in 2011, when we were seeing a lot of students that were just overwhelmed and disengaged because they were simply learning about all the ecosystem and biodiversity threats that the ocean's facing. And we wanted to create a space where those students could actually get out in the field, work with real researchers, learn about these issues, and really have an active role in solutions and in changes. And we've really found that that's been essential to getting these students to really understand that, like Zach, like you were saying in that quote, that this is just the middle of the story, that there are some things that still can be done, and there's some wonderful solutions. So our history with these wonderful, amazing collaborators on the panel today started back in 2016. I think if we could advance the slide, I have a little timeline for everyone to the next one here. So we started back in 2016, actually bringing students to Reef Renewal Bonaire to learn about coral restoration techniques and how do you rebuild a reef using fragmentation, putting coral into nursery, which you're going to learn a little bit more about later on today. And then in 2021, we were actually able to amplify our work with the addition of a spotter platform that was donated by Aqualink. And so we were able to put spotter platforms not only in Bonaire in conjunction with a coral restoration program, but in other locations around the world to study sharks and other ecosystem and biodiversity threats. And then fast forward to last year, in 2024, we actually started developing some original curriculum so that our students could start fabricating hardware on the spotter platform. And that's a current project that we're expanding now to include other types of hardware, other sensors, and other development on this system. Let's get to the next slide. So everything that we do it's open access science data, and we publish that on Aqualink. Everything also that is developed, we use open source development. And essentially we always, for greater impact, are working with collaborators around the world. And this photo is actually one of our students just 2 weeks ago in Bonaire at a coral nursery at Oil Slick, where we were changing one of the temperature sensors that was having some issues. And that was in conjunction with our partner, Reef Renewal Bonaire, which I'd like to pass it off to so you could learn about their amazing work and some of the future projects that we have.
All right, Sanne, take it away.
Can you, yes, see my screen? Or it's working?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. Yeah, so thank you, Vin, so much for that introduction. So my name is Sanne, and I have been working at Reef Renewal Foundation for the past 5 years and currently as science officer. And so I just kind of want to start my presentation with maybe introducing where we are located, because not everybody might be familiar with this. So Bonaire is a small island located in the southern Caribbean. As you can see on this map, we are just above Venezuela, and we have 2 other kind of bigger islands next to us, Aruba and Curacao. And Bonaire is pretty small. We have around 24,000 people, and we are very invested in the coral reefs. It's a big part of the economy. A lot of divers are coming here to dive as well. So we're kind of the shore diving capital in the world, they sometimes call it as well. So very reliant on the coral reefs. And Reef Renewal Foundation Bonaire was founded in 2012. So we've been active for over 10 years now. And we are really focused on restoring the key coral populations on Bonaire. And so right now we are working with 16 different coral species across 15 nurseries and 19 restoration sites. We can produce over 20,000 corals each year, and we have outplanted around 65,000 corals so far. And in this picture, you can see the team. But really, we're a small NGO, and we're doing this with a family of volunteers and a lot of partners. And so I just want to highlight like how many with who we work with. So we work a lot with the local governments, but also some of the more international organizations like CORDAP and Bloomberg and other NGOs within the Caribbean area. And something that really sets us apart is that we work really closely with the local dive shops on the island. So we have over 16 dive shops that are really our educational center and train our volunteers and also inform people coming to the island about how important the coral reefs are. We work on restoring the key coral populations by increasing the abundance of the coral fragments on the reef, and also by using coral breeding, so increasing the genetic diversity on the reefs. On the picture on the left, you can see some of just cut pillar corals in one of our nurseries, and on the right, the green fluorescent dots are actually just settled coral polyps from our coral breeding program. And so why are we needed? So these are some really nice pictures showing Bonaire's coral reefs in the 1980s and the 1990s. And as you can see in these pictures, there's abundance of fish and also very much an abundance of corals and coral species. However, unfortunately, currently, like many of the other locations around the world, we're facing some challenges, and sometimes the reefs look more like the pictures on the right, where we have a lot of rubble, a lot of coral mortality, and also a lot of stress. So the picture on the bottom right, you can see actually some mass bleaching that we had just in 2024. And that's really one of the main things that we are struggling with right now. So coral bleaching is, the past 2 years was really bad in the Caribbean region. as most areas around the world. On the left, you have a NOAA temperature graph, and the gray and the black lines are the past 2 years, whereas if you can see at the red lines, that's what it was in 2020. So there's a big difference between what happened in the past 2 years and what is kind of normal for our reefs. On the right, you can see some bleached corals, and fortunately, some of these corals can recover if the water temperature goes down quick enough, but unfortunately, also a lot of them have died. One of the things that you actually can see in this NOAA graph on the left is that the title says Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire, and that's because the product that we're getting from NOAA is actually a combination of all these 3 islands that I showed in the previous map. And so together with Vince from Whalefall, we've been able to actually have one of those spotter platforms at one of our critical nursery locations on Bonaire, the Oil Slick Leap it's called. It's where we've been showing those pictures from. And I plotted the temperature, so the blue line from this spotter buoy at the surface compared to what the NOAA temperature is giving us. And some key takeaways that we can see from this is that, first of all, NOAA is still pretty accurate, which is amazing, but also that some of the more smaller details can be missed by the NOAA temperature, which the spotter can actually pick up on. So if you look at more towards 2025, later in the year, you can see that the spotter sometimes gives more of a dip in temperature or some higher temperatures. And this buoy has been critical for us because the bleaching has been so bad last year. Really being able to keep real-time track of what is happening specifically at our nursery location was very valuable and important for us because we could implement some actions, mitigation, but also just knowing where we're kind of at in the story and how much we still have to go, especially around September, November. It just kept going up and only slowly going down. So this spotter was so valuable with us that together with Vince, we wanted to create this new project, so Next Space, and we want to basically integrate the amazing water temperature sensors that we have with some of our coral restoration work as well. So we're looking at how this spotter platform together with the bristle mouth enabled sensors can maybe create a LED light array to increase the survival of our coral breeding nursery. So this is kind of a mouthful, but basically what we want to do is combine our coral breeding program with the spotter platform buoy. So why do we actually want to do this? I just have a quick schematic of the coral life cycle. So the coral is an animal and it reproduces sexually each year. They actually, once it's their sexual material is fertilized, it will create this small coral larvae that will look around the reef and start to find a place to attach themselves to. So over here in this slide, I highlighted the picture where you have just one coral polyp. It's kind of similar to the picture I also showed previously, where you have those dots. That's the first polyp of this coral settler. As they grow, their polyps will start dividing, creating more polyps and eventually a whole coral colony, which looks more similar to the other picture below, where you have multiple coral polyps forming something that looks already a bit more like what people are used to seeing on the reef. But within this phase, the corals are actually very sensitive and very vulnerable, and they really need a lot of food to be able to grow and survive. So we're trying to see if we can increase basically the food that they get around this time to increase the survivorship and growth of these coral, young coral settlers. And the way that we can do this in the field, because a lot of our work is actually done on the water, we don't have a lab, is just turning a light on each night to attract the zooplankton that the coral can feed on. And so together with Vince, we had this idea to create a spotter platform where we can not only have water temperature sensors at the surface and at the bottom, but also this LED light array system that will be coded and programmed by his students to turn on 1 hour at night to attract the zooplankton for our young coral settlers. And so in the pictures above, you can see something that's our coral breeding nursery. It's the stand to keep the larvae inside. And in this stand, there are these crates with these substrates that we provide for the coral larvae. So basically attaching a light to this system to attract the zooplankton. But because these spotter platforms are also so lightweight and mobile, we're thinking of using them also in the off-coral spawning season to move them around and find areas where maybe the water temperatures are lower, or just knowing what the water temperatures is doing at all these different locations. In addition, we're also hopefully looking into maybe integrating some water quality sensors or anything else that could be available to us to help us make more also database decisions for restoration work. And so this project has been now set up on this website called experiment.com, where we're looking for crowdfunding to be able to set this up. Our timeline, hopefully, if this all works out, Vince will come with this buoy system for us around July, so we can use it straight away for the corals that we're using around that time, being able to increase the survivorship and growth. So that would be amazing. Thank you for this. And then I'll give my screen to the next presenter.
Great, thank you, Sanne. All right, I think you all can see my Aqualink screen now, right? Perfect. All right, so hello everyone, my name is Caesar. I work for a philanthropic ocean monitoring organization called Aqualink. I'm excited to show you how we are making ocean data accessible to everyone, empowering a global community of ocean stewards. We started in 2020 with a goal of providing monitoring tools to scientists and the public for free, and to monitor heat waves, coral bleaching, and reef health more efficiently. We were instrumental in bringing the low-cost Sofar Smart Marine buoy to the market by providing funding, market demand, and a global fleet of reef managers. And in addition to supporting this game-changing low-cost buoy and acquiring a whole fleet of them, we created an online platform for monitoring of marine ecosystems, where all of this information comes together. So this platform has two main parts: the map, which we will explore shortly, and these informative dashboards. And every dashboard is automatically equipped with wind, wave, and temperature data straight from NOAA satellites. And you can see the monitoring site's location, the temperature data from NOAA satellites, the temperature data from Sofar Spotter, if available, and then the critical heat stress alert level, wind and wave conditions, and the last survey conducted. And by combining data with visual observations, we can automatically link a survey to what the temperature was when it was conducted. So here in the temperature graph, we can clearly track the temperature changes while also viewing those visual observations conducted in the reef. So in this specific case, in Bermuda, the corals were healthy in August. Then due to increased temperatures, they started bleaching. But then a hurricane came by and brought with it cooler water, which we can see here, cooling down the reef. And after this, the water temperature stayed low, and that was enough for the corals to recover back into a healthy state in December. And this isn't just numbers, it's a story of resilience told through data and human observation. Another key that unlocks the power of Aqualink is our interactive map. This lets you explore all the sites and heat stress levels across the globe. And the red and purple areas are urgent warning signs, indicating prolonged periods of heat stress where coral reefs are exposed to a high risk of bleaching. And in the bottom left, you can see the DHV bar that gives you a timeline in weeks of this heat stress. And the color of the icons on the map, they pinpoint exactly which heat stress level each individual monitoring site is currently experiencing. All right, so let's take a quick visual journey into the Aqualink platform itself. So here we have the Aqualink map, and we can make this map bigger too by clicking on this icon right here. And in the top right corner, you can see a layer icon. So let's click on that one. And now we can get sea surface temperature data. We can also change the heat stress, which we just talked about. So if we zoom in here, we can see all these dark colors indicating prolonged heat stress. So then if we go back here, we can see the featured site. And if we click on a site, that will be the selected site. We can also click on this filter button. So let's click on that one and then select sensor and data types. Here we can click on active buoys. So now we can see all the Sofar spotters currently deployed on the Aqualink map, and all of them are transmitting real-time information. So let's click on one of the sites and then click on explore. So now we go to the Aqualink dashboard for this specific site. And here we can see all the dashboard cards. And if we scroll down, we can see all the graphs. We can also change the date range of all the graphs simultaneously. So in this specific graph, the temperature analysis graph, we can see 4 different measurements. In red, we see historical monthly mean. In light blue, we see the surface temperature data from NOAA satellites. And in dark blue and orange, we see the Sofar Smart Mooring buoy, the temperature data from 1 meter and 15 meters depth. And satellite data is incredibly valuable and accurate. However, here we can see the importance of having in situ sensors which measures data in detail. Here we can see a significant drop in temperature clearly picked up by the Sofar Spotter, but it wasn't recorded by the satellites. So if we continue to scroll down, we can see the rest of the graphs available and also all of the surveys that were conducted at this specific reef. So a survey represents the overall data collection for the site. And within each survey, there are multiple survey points. These are specific locations where individual observations are taken. So let's click on one of the survey points. Here we can see all the surveys that were conducted at this specific point in the reef and how the health of these corals changed over time. If we take a look at a survey from another site, we can see all the survey points that were surveyed during this specific dive. Here's a video we shared together with SimCosta when Brazil experienced a heat wave along most of its coastline last year based on their Aqualink dashboard and that survey point we just looked at. I can't share any audio, unfortunately, so just bear with me for 15 seconds. All right. So the dashboard is flexible. You can personalize your dashboard in any way that fits you the best. For example, you can add a live stream, 3D models, water quality data, a Sofar Spotter, surveys, or just use the included satellite data. It's completely up to you to decide how your dashboard will look like and how it will function. So how do you get your own Aqualink dashboard? Well, it's super easy. Just go to aqualink.org and click on register your site. And then you select the specific location in the map where you want your dashboard to be located. And then just add the site name. And then you add the depth, but this could be a rough estimate. It's not too important to be exact here. And then you wait a few hours for the data to be populated into the dashboard cards and graphs from the NOAA satellites. But what if you have a Sofar Spotter and you would like to add that one to your dashboard? All you need to do is just go to Edit Site Details in the top right corner, check the box for Add a Custom API Token, and then add your Spotter ID and the Sofar API Token. And then you click on Save. So it's super easy to get your own Aqualink dashboards. It's also super easy to add your Sofar Spotter. All right, for those of you involved in monitoring specific locations, Aqualink offers a fantastic way to amplify your impact. You can create a public collection, essentially your own dedicated map, showcasing only your monitoring sites. This makes it incredibly easy to share your valuable work and the health of your reef with others. You can also create your own private dashboard just for you. You don't have to manage these sites. Just find any site on the map that sparks your interest and hit that bookmark icon on that specific dashboard to add it to your private monitoring hub. So how do our users use their Aqualink sites? Well, the dashboard creates an instant view of your local reef's condition. It automatically creates graphs and dashboard cards. It allows you to upload data from sensors and conduct photographic surveys in a structured way based on best practices. And this becomes a powerful tool to share your valuable data with your community, and even providing clear evidence to influence policy decisions with clear, accessible information. And this dashboard is also a place where you can maintain a library for your data file collections. If you don't have your own sites with dashboards, it's not a problem at all. Aqualink is designed for everyone who cares about the ocean, and you can still use it to monitor oceans globally with our map or locally in existing public dashboards from our growing community. Finally, for those of you fortunate enough to have a Sofar Spotter platform, please consider adding it to Aqualink. By connecting your buoy, you're not just collecting information, you're also contributing real-time insights that can inform conservation efforts worldwide and make your local observations truly impactful on a global scale. So thank you. That was all for me, and over to you, Zack.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. How's my audio?
It's great.
All right. Okay. Thank you, guys. This is the best part of my day, is when I get to talk to you guys about the work that you do. I mean, you get to really see some of this stuff in action. I'm an engineer, so I spend a lot of time, putting multimeters on wires and, banging out some code and helping folks answer questions over email. And to step out and see some of this equipment in the field doing good work is absolutely the best part of my day. And there's a lot of people in the audience that are doing really good work as well. And they have done a great job of filling up the questions list. So I'm glad we have a little bit of time to address those. One of the first questions I want to get to is, this seems to be a popular one, and maybe Abby, you might be able to help us out with this. Where will we be able to see the recording of this video?
Hey, that's a great question. So it will be shared with Sofar Ocean, and I believe you guys will distribute it to the participants who registered. As
is tradition. And then no doubt it'll be available over social or on our blog as well if you want to check it out there. And we'll share a copy with Whalefall, or Reef Renewal, and Aqualink as well. I have some questions. So thank you to everybody who left them. I don't think we're going to get to all of them, but really at the top, maybe Caesar, I was really intrigued by the complementary data from the real-time buoys and also from the satellite data. What have you noticed much discrepancy between those? Do they agree? Is the difference important? What's your general take on kind of the role of satellite observations in coral reef and other environmental management?
Yeah, I think satellite data is super important. I mean, it's great. Just think about it. You can take data from anywhere in the world at any point. So wherever you want to measure data or see how a coral reef is doing compared to temperature or anything else, you can always get the data from satellites. So it's super important, and it's also free to get the data. I mean, you can just go to Aqualink to get the data for free. So I think satellite data is amazing. But as I showed before, we can also see the importance of having like Sofar spotters or other in situ sensors that measures the data in more detail, because it might be hard for satellites to measure to that level of detail. But overall, I think it's invaluable to have satellite data.
Great. Sanne or Vince, any strong opinions or interesting anecdotes regarding satellite data? How, like Sanne, I'm curious, do you guys interface with satellite data in your day-to-day? Is that something you're constantly looking at, or is it maybe it's just time to write a paper, you're gonna take a look at the HICOM data?
No, for sure. For us, the NOAA data is obviously critical because of the coral bleaching watch and all the stress alert levels that we have. So I'm actually watching that daily to hopefully that we don't have any bleaching this year. And I think it's just nice to complement that with those also those sensors in the water. So the satellite data is critical but it's quite large resolution for smaller islands like us in the Caribbean. So actually having those sensors not only at the surface, but also at depth, really allows us to see more of a bigger picture, because sometimes the temperature also changes at depth. And just those small, even like 0.5 degree, 1 degree difference can really make a difference for corals. So having both actually is the best solution, I think.
Thanks. You touched on something that was also a question from earlier, which is like what density of measurement is really important. I think specifically around spotter buoys. As a person working at Sofar, I feel that a high density of spotter buoys is really critical. But we get this question a lot from folks all over the spectrum of different science and engineering, and it really depends on the question that you're asking. The way that wind and waves propagate across the open ocean is much more predictable than something like the effect of upwelling on this particular reef as it transitions from rocky cliff to shallow lagoon. And so it's a difficult question to answer specifically, but with regards to reef monitoring, it seems like having temperature, surface and bottom, is really important on the exact reef that you're studying. And I'm curious, either Caesar or Sanne or Vince, do you guys have like a rule of thumb? Do you, like, if you had an infinite number of temperature sensors, where would be, would you place them at every 25 feet? Are there any standards for this, or are people just kind of, is it dependent on the scientist who's doing the work?
I think, and feel free to also have a different opinion about this. For one thing, having a huge density of sensors would be amazing in like a researcher's world, but as like a practitioner, you can have so much data, but only being able to use a little bit for us. So I think really looking critically at also how your reef is shaped and where it would be good to have those sensors, because it will actually change maybe at only 10 areas around your coastline, then having actually those sensors at those 10 areas would be the most valuable. Also, the different depths are really interesting to see, because people are now looking into saying, hey, maybe if you have corals at a different depth, having colder water there would help mitigate the bleaching. So having those sensors then maybe at less areas, but at more depths, would really help to, as a practitioner, help to create, make better decisions as well for us as a strategy perspective. I don't know if Caesar maybe or Vince, you guys have also some ideas or thoughts about this.
Well, there is actually in Bonaire right now, there's a team from Florida State University that's trying to answer this exact question. And so they've been doing a long-term study to figure out, in a marine protected area, how many data buoys would you need in a cost-efficient way to be able to truly have enough data. So I did reach out to the team in preparation for this. They said the results should be this fall. They should be able to publish some early results, but they did say it's a much more complicated question. Initially when I had talked to them, I was like, is it one buoy per so many hectares of coral reef? And it's just not going to be that simple of an answer.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. We got another question that was around, like, are there any upcoming features or product improvements to Spotter and Smart Mooring? Yes, 100%. Love that question. But I actually want to roll that into another question. We got a couple times, I think three people asked about cameras. So first, let me preface that Sofar does not have any plans to introduce a camera yet. That seems like a complicated thing. We've got hydrophone and DO coming up. And so I want to expand that also, water quality, soundscapes, hydrophone being used for reef health, marine mammal detection, illegal fishing, and cameras. Like, what do you think? Maybe I'll start with Caesar. Like, what you guys do a lot of work with cameras already, right? And then what does that mean to reef managers to be able to get live video, live photos?
Yes, we do. And I actually share this now to the organizer, so if someone could maybe post it to everyone, 3 of those links. So yes, we do have live streams on Aqualink. We don't personally own it, but some of our users who are using Aqualink have added their live streams to our dashboard. So what you can do then is basically you can get real-time information while at the same time seeing exactly what's going on in the reef. So you get real-time data and visual observations, which is just, yeah, I don't think there is a better way to monitor a reef than just looking at everything at the same time and get the correct data. So I think it's invaluable to have a camera. You can do so much with it, and there's a lot of people working on AI to survey the reef instantly by AI, and you can also do that for like reef health and like bleaching and so on. So it's super cool with underwater cameras, I think.
Awesome. So Vince and Sanne, have I got any kind of creativity flowing with the prospect that you might be able to attach a hydrophone to a spotter buoy coming up? Is there anything you would do with soundscape, or is visual data really the critical tool for your work? And we're going to do that with diver transects. That's the best way we know. Tell me a little bit about your experience with either visual or hydrophone data.
So we personally haven't used that before. There's a lot of research now coming out where they mention that you can measure like the health of the reef by the amount of sound coming from it, or initiate coral settlement through this, which is super interesting and very much something that could be looked for in the future, and also still in the initial phases as well. And so if we are very excited more about the LED light now, because it can really increase focus instead of monitoring. It's more like a actionable thing that can help increase the growth and the survivorship. Having said that, I also looked at having like current sensors. I was in your slide as an option, like something like that would also be very valuable, because having more current would mean that there's sometimes cools off the corals more. But there's so many options that maybe in camera in the future can really help communicate what you're doing to people that might not be here or might not be able to dive. So I think every component has its own kind of target, and it's just what kind of question you want to answer at that moment for what you're doing.
That's something
Awesome.
we are
Thank you, guys.
into in the future, hydrophone data. It's looking really cool.
Great. And then another question we got quite frequently is like, how do we collaborate, or are you collaborating with this group or that group? I don't know if we have time to get to everybody there, but Vince, maybe I'll start with you. Like, what's Whalefall interested in exploring now? I know you guys got the experiment.com up, so it's a little plug there. If you have the ability and you're listening to this, go check that out and donate to them. It's as you can tell, for a worthy cause. But what's next on the horizon for you guys?
Well, I would say we're always exploring new project ideas. I think one of the things that we love to do is help crowdsource problems. So we do have access to this global student network and everyone is really eager to make a real world difference. So please reach out to me if you have any projects that you have an interest in working with a large group of students who could prototype test pretty rapidly. What's on the horizon for us, you mentioned acoustic sensors. We have been talking to Blue Oasis about looking into adding acoustic sensors to a spotter platform to basically monitor and help protect marine protected areas. That's a new project we're exploring right now and very excited about.
Thanks, Vince. With regard to partnerships, Caesar, it seems like there's a lot of groups out there that are either producing or handling or standardizing core reef data. Can you tell me about some of the? I think you guys have been working with a few folks like Reef Check, right? Can you tell me a little bit about your approach to partnerships there and how you can kind of make the most of everyone's time and be as efficient as possible?
Yeah, so like Reef Check is super interesting. We just finished a partnership with Reef Check, and we're actually announcing it to everyone pretty much this week. That's when we're rolling out promotion for it. So it's perfect timing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blow the timing on that. Sorry.
Yeah, we're adding over 17,000 surveys from Reef Check worldwide. So all of their valuable information is now available on Aqualink with all the other information, and also you get all the satellite data also for all of those survey sites and everything. So we might not do a lot of standardizing ourselves. We do a little bit with the surveys together with other organizations, but we also adding partnerships that bring standardization to Aqualink. So that's kind of the way we do it. But the Reef Check partnership is huge for us, and we're super excited about it. So feel free to check out all the Reef Check data on Aqualink.
Awesome. And
one of the things I really love about that too, Caesar, is that like I think traditionally there's been so much parallel work done, and if we could collaborate and share data, it would make such a difference for people on the front lines of conservation and research.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why we have the philosophy to have everything for free and everything publicly available, so we can collaborate instead of just hiding information everywhere. So I would completely agree with you.
then, we're coming up on time here, but there's kind of like a bit of an important question that we touched on a little bit, but there's a lot of specific questions around different techniques to either prevent bleaching, mitigate bleaching, or recover afterwards. Sanne, what things are in your toolbox that you guys are really excited about? And then I also want to pass that over to Vince and Caesar. Like, what have you guys heard? What's worth exploring? Let's say on a very happy note. What are some of the things that have shown some promise?
It's a very good question, and something we've been really working hard as well within our organization. So a couple things that we do as an organization is you can mitigate the temperature and light stress that is coming from the climate change by, for example, implementing shading or moving corals, relocating them deeper. And this is something we've been working on and experimenting with and checking out what is most effective for our local reef, because some reefs have much temperature difference as you go down. However, Bonaire doesn't have that as much. So you need to also kind of work with what you have. And those, actually the spotter buoy that was really helpful with that as well, because it also had a sensor at 10 meters. But then in addition to that, climate change and coral bleaching is going to happen even more frequently in the future, because that's just how it is. So what we are really looking for those resilient genotypes for each coral species, finding those during the mass bleaching events, and then actually bringing those in our coral breeding and coral fragmentation program. So propagating those and multiplying those genotypes that do show strength against coral bleaching, because there's still some out there, the survivors, and basically building upon that, diversity as well, and making sure that the reef just kind of grows with those stressors as much as we can do, basically.
Thanks, Vince or Caesar. Anything on the distant horizon that you're excited about with regards to mitigation or prevention of bleaching?
Yeah, we've been really excited to test a lot of the ideas in the field. One, we collaborated with Trophics, who is working on an upwelling pump, and we actually did test that during last year's warming event, and it did work to drop the temperature. There's always questions about how scalable that is, but maybe that technology would be paired well with a coral restoration project, like something at Reef Renewal. We've also, during that warming event, we're looking at coral feeding in situ in both the Caribbean and in the Coral Triangle. And it was a really unique opportunity because we'd look at coral heads that had some polyps were bleached, some were healthy, and we have some footage of showing that the bleached polyps were feeding just as aggressively as the healthy polyps on those newly bleached coral polyps, trying to recover that 85% loss from the zooxanthellae loss. And also, I think some of the most exciting research that we've been looking into is kind of, can you optimize zooxanthellae and introduce optimized zooxanthellae to coral so that when it does recover from a bleaching event, can it be more sustainable and resilient in the future?
Well, that's amazing. I'm just going to check in with Abby for a time check. It's 10 till, and just wanted to make sure we still had just a little smidge of time to get out of here, or whether I needed to move us along.
I am good until the top of the hour.
All right. So I think we're coming to a natural conclusion here, though. I wanted to kind of wrap things up just a little bit here. We here at Sofar, we really put a lot of emphasis on creating tools for people to do the work that they need to do, and the importance of real-time data. And I think you've heard from the group here that it's actually these things work in concert with the bigger picture and with bigger organizations and government work that's going out there. And so, you know, the big shout out to everybody who's able to, especially in the attendee list. I've been looking through the attendee list. It's like there's some really great folks here. So thank you all for coming out and representing your orgs here at the, when we send out the recording and follow up, we'll make sure that you have the contact information for everyone here. Please do reach out. As you can tell, we're all very open to collaborating, and we're all very open to, you know, discussing these things, you know, kind of in a way that we can all help each other, which has been really an uplifting part of this discussion and our ongoing work with these groups. I also wanted to take a quick second just to thank specifically Abby and Serena for all your help putting this webinar together, making sure that we can all get here organized and on time. Thanks again to MTS for the opportunity, and Vince, Sanne, and Caesar, thank you so much for your time. You've been very, very generous with it, and all of you out there for being generous with your time, taking time out of your day to hear things from us. I suppose, you know, the last thing, maybe we'll end with a final question, and maybe a kind of a way to send us all off here. But for each of you, what's something you're really excited about this year? Just it's coming up, it's happening. What are you most thrilled about? Vince, maybe we'll start with you, and then go to Caesar and Sanne.
Well, top of mind right now is I'm really excited to get to Bonaire to deploy this new spotter platform with a light array. I think it's gonna produce some really interesting results, and I really want to see how this project unfolds over the year, and if it can make a real big difference in success rates for the coral.
Love that. Everybody get onto experiment.com. Let's make it happen. I think we have the power here. Caesar, what about you?
I'm super excited, first of all, about the Reef Check integration, to see what everybody thinks and what we can do to improve that part. It's super exciting. I'm also excited about hydrophone, and we also have some new research projects that people are doing with our data. So it's going to be super cool to see what the outcome is from those.
Oh, that's huge. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. Sanne, I think you get to take us home.
Yes, well, I have to second Vincent. Actually, Vince, really excited about this project, especially because it's so critical right now to, you know, have that survivorship and everything just going with all these other things going on. So if this works and it's successful, I mean, we could do so many more other things. So I'm really excited for this project.
Awesome. I'm gonna have the cheesiest answer, but I'm most excited to follow these projects and see how they go. These are some of my favorite, and feature all the best that we do here as a group. So thanks again, everybody, for your time. I hope this puts your day in a better mood, since I bummed everybody out with some statistics at the beginning. But please follow up with us and reach out and let us know how you think about how the webinar went and the content. And if you've got an idea that you're just dying to share, Sofar and MTS love to collaborate to put these things on. I think there could be an entire webinar just on technologies for mitigation and reaction to bleaching. But there's a ton of other topics out there that are, I think, equally as interesting that we could dive into. So please send us your ideas. We'd love to collaborate on that. Extra special love to collaborate if it's utilizing Sofar equipment to get that done, especially smart mooring and bristlemouth. Very stoked on that. With that, let's call it there. Abby, is there anything special you would like me to do to close out this session?
Nope, we are good to go. I just want to thank you guys so much for the presentation, and I'm looking forward to following up and learning more about your guys' projects and exploring those links. Just thanks for sharing those, Zack. All right, guys, I'm going to end the meeting. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.